I've just reached 12 weeks postpartum, and this symbolizes and literally completes the end of the fourth trimester. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, trimester, that's 3. What is she talking about? More and more data confirms that when a baby is born after 3 trimesters, or about 40 weeks, the baby's development that could be happening within the womb space is actually not complete. And this is for a very important reason, which is if the baby were to continue to grow within the womb and the head would continue to grow as the brain continues to grow, it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the baby to exit the vaginal canal. So there's an understanding that a baby is born not fully cooked, not fully baked, incomplete in some ways. And so the 3 months subsequent of the birth are extremely important and should be treated kind of with the same type of gentle, nourishing, all-intensive, very close care as when the baby is in the womb. Now, the big difference between when the baby's in the womb and the baby's out is that our bodies as women are instinctively doing everything that needs to happen to take care of the baby's every single need, right? The placenta, the umbilical cord, they are filtering nutrients and filtering out toxins. They are giving baby anything on demand that the baby wants. When the baby's hungry, the baby can sleep and is in this enclosed, lovely space at all times. It's totally safe. It's warm. There's a continuous sound that is very comforting. And then the baby comes out and still has this kind of last trimester. And there's all sorts of new variables. And the new mama, who's also a newborn in her own respect too, is also undergoing massive developmental changes during this time. So the fourth trimester is initially kind of coined for the baby, but it's also very much for the mom. And so this is why we treat these kind of first 3 months after birth as a very delicate, vulnerable, and very important period for the development and the bonding of the baby and the mama. And so now I've kind of completed this fourth trimester, and I do physically and emotionally in many ways feel like a new person or a new version of me. And as I look back and reflect, although a lot of my intensive recovery focus was on the first 40 days postpartum, as per the traditional Taiwanese Chinese recovery process of 坐月子, as well as some of the other traditional 30 to 40 plus day recovery protocols that I've studied from across the world. Although that was really the focus, I have since stayed really, I've stayed really on top of, or very much in awareness of what I'm doing to take care of myself as much as, of course, take care of baby Lucas during these first couple of months. And some things that really stand out is, number one, finding new and creative ways in this postpartum to allow myself to rest even more. Now, with my first postpartum with Lila, Warren and I very early on were like putting Lucas in this, such a mom of 2, putting Lila in her snoo bassinet, which is an amazing thing if you know about it. And we were very proactive about offering sleep training support very early on. Like at 8 weeks, we were already getting her on more of a regimented nap schedule. And actually that was, although it was potentially great for her, who knows, it was really hard for me. I'll speak for myself. I know it was difficult for Warren too, but it was very hard for me because for all of the time that she was crying and waiting 5 minutes, waiting 10 minutes to go in and soothe her, go in and check on her, eventually pick her up, or all the time that she was getting to sleep or being woken up and then needing to be tended back to sleep, was time that I wasn't sleeping. And the more research I've done about this fourth trimester and the importance of proximity of the baby to the mom, the more I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I totally set either of us up for ultimate success. with the second postpartum, it wasn't exactly intentional, but it's kind of just happened this way. I have done a lot more co-sleeping with Lucas. And that means that when he wakes up, he feels and smells and sees me. And just by simply nuzzling his head, I'm awoken. And I also kind of, as much as I can be aware of what's happening, but awoken and I can feed him. And there's very little crying that happens at night and very little angst on my part of like, is he getting to sleep? Is he going to be okay? I can't see him. Look at the monitor, check again. Like kind of that energy that I very much had with Lila. So I'm sleeping better right now than I have probably in like the years prior to giving birth to Lucas. And that has made such an impact, I believe, on my mental health as well as my physical health in this recovery period. The kind of postpartum angst, anxiety that I felt about kind of coincides with sleep training around like weeks like 8 or 9 through 11 of my first postpartum. I have not felt any of that in this postpartum. Occasionally there's kind of an intrusive thought that comes in, one of those like worst case scenarios, mommy goes 6 steps ahead of something that might happen, but I felt so much more balanced and so much more energized. And as a result, my immunity has also been way higher. So one of the reasons why I started co-sleeping with Lucas to begin with was because actually when he was super, super young, like just a couple of weeks old, he picked up one of many viruses that Lila would bring home from her school daycare. And the hospital said, keep him at a 45-degree elevation. Now, for both adults and babies, sleeping at a 45-degree elevation greatly increases the nasal passageways and the airways into the system, which increases the amount of oxygen we can actually get. So what started out as a way of kind of helping Lucas to sleep better, even though he was congested, by elevating him on my chest, surrounded by like 50 pillows, really turned into a routine, something that felt really good for us. And I know that there's a lot of data about sleep hygiene and sleep safety, and that the American Academy of Pediatrics does not recommend co-sleeping, and there's a lot to unpack there. I'm not here to make a stance, I'm just sharing my experience. But that really helped both, I believe, him and his sleep as well as my own. So that was a huge, huge, huge one. And then the other thing that I really am looking at right now as I reflect on the overall 12-week postpartum period is that beyond those first 40 days, I continue to maintain a really high level of awareness of getting enough protein, getting enough good fat, and getting enough overall kind of mineral-rich, vitamin-rich, fresh, local, produce-related food as I possibly can and could. And that's been enormously helpful as well with keeping my hormones kind of as they recalibrate, keeping them supported, as well as giving me the good nutrition that I need for my own recovery, energy, as well as for breastfeeding. And it's so simple, right? We think about all these like technology related or complicated things, or I don't know, it's just the things that I'm pointing out right now, I realize are very simple, but they're not easy. And so I'm just sharing my experience because it's important to hear other stories. And I'm not sharing any of this from an advice giving perspective or from even the perspective of like an expert. I'm just sharing my experience as a woman who's just completed her 4th trimester. And I hope that resonates with you in some way, whether you like it or not, agree with it or not. I could go on for a lot longer, but for the sake of both of our time, I'm gonna complete now and just kind of end with a little bit of gratitude. The past 12 weeks have been beyond amazing, and I really feel my heart just bursting with thankfulness and appreciation for the life that's unfolding around me as well as within me, and the just amount of joy and laughter and wonder that I've experienced over these past 12 weeks, and also how the challenging times, and there have been many over the past 12 weeks, the challenging times have been such potent practice material for me to deepen a theme that I'm working on in all areas of my life, which is self-love and self-compassion, unconditional self-love and compassion. And for that, I'm enormously grateful. So not sugarcoating it, but just feeling appreciative. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in and for following me over this journey. I think I'll probably pause on the weekly life updates, but I definitely feel committed to continuing sharing videos, and the feedback I've been getting is pretty good so far, and I've been getting a lot of new ideas for material. So please keep that coming if you haven't already shared. I'm so excited to hear what's interesting to you, and hopefully I can provide some value in your life and in your day. Okay, thanks.